though as a man. A human being though as a man.
Well, one of the reasons I created this one-woman show that I've been touring around the world with the last 7 years was to tell people exactly what kind of man he really was. And a lot of people will ask me if he was romantic, and to me, he was the epitome of romance. He was the kind of guy who used to wake me up just to walk out on the balcony at night just to see the full moon. And he used to leave little valentines for me all around the house on Valentine's Day. And he was such a brilliant man, a very erudite gentleman, and also a Pittsburgh street kid. He was kind of a lovely blend of the two.
Wow.
Patricia, I have to confess I had a big crush on Gene Kelly. I was in love with him as a young girl.
Could have been you, Denise.
Clearly a very smart woman.
Gene Kelly is, of course, famous for Singing in the Rain and that wonderful classic dancing, but I read where he was unwell when he actually filmed that.
That's one of the few myths that is true. He was very, very sick when he shot that. And you have to remember, he's directing, choreographing, and starring in that number. And he shot it in a day and a half with a temperature of about 103. So it is pretty remarkable.
Wow, that is extraordinary. Patricia, as you pay homage to everything that Gene Kelly was, as we said, he made it fashionable for men to dance. But recently, I know you made some headlines speaking out after a Good Morning America host made a remark about Prince George and dancing. Were you surprised that boys and men dancing is still a bit of a subject of ridicule?
Well, that was really the subject of my letter, that Gene created a television special back in 1958 called Dancing, a Man's Game, to show the connection between sports and dance. And it just astonished me that so many years later, we're still talking about it and still trying to make it okay. So I think it's time. I think we ought to find a way to end that conversation and consider it okay for men to be on stage dancing.
More than just Gene Kelly's dancing is something of legendary status, you could say that the love affair that you two had was quite extraordinary as well. 28 you were and 73 when you both met. It's quite a large age difference. How did you overcome that? And what was life like together?
It's even bigger than, I was 26 when I met him and he was 73. And
wow.
But the interesting thing is that it will seem hard to believe, but I never noticed. Gene was so young at heart. He was so dynamic. He was so brilliant, and he was just the most handsome man, as I think you would agree. And so it wasn't until the tabloids made such a big deal of it that I actually sat down and started counting up the years. But it really didn't come into play in our life. We really bonded over language, over words and poetry, and the age wasn't something that was an issue. It was an issue for the rest of the world, but not for us.
Could he still dance? Did he still have the moves? Did he ever, sweep you off your feet on the dance floor?
Well, you need to come to my show next year and see that. But I will tell you that he didn't dance in public, because the minute he stood up, the entire room wanted to dance with him. So he and Fred Astaire came up with this thing that they'd pretend to have bad legs so that they could stand in the corner and they wouldn't have to dance. But I will tell you that one New Year's Eve, we had Frank Sinatra on the stereo and Nat King Cole, and we got to dance all through the house, and it was the most romantic evening of my entire life. I had the great fortune, the real privilege of recording Gene in some fashion nearly every day for over 10 years. He brought me out to write his memoir and then ended up marrying me 5 years into that process. So I have a story that really no one has, and what I do is I put these stories, tell these stories on stage between these beautiful film clips on a big screen. And then I have several of the objects from his life that I also share with people. And a couple of things, like I brought these along today.
Wow.
He was not only ahead of his time with movies, but he also was ahead of his time sartorially, and these are the Converse tennis shoes that he wore when he was directing Hello, Dolly. And so I have a lot of things that I kind of magically pull out and share with people, and the little notes he used to leave for me around the house. And describe it as basically I ask everyone in the audience to get in a little boat with me, and you go on a little journey into Gene's heart and mind. And at the end of it, I greet people before and after, but they come up to me and they'll say, you know, I loved him before, but I love him even more now.
Oh, wow. Well, Patricia will be here in February. You can head to ticketmaster.com.au for tickets to the Sydney shows and the Melbourne recital.com.au to see her in Melbourne. Patricia, thank you so much for joining us. Fantastic lady.
Extraordinary, isn't it? I can't believe he lifted notes around the house, little valentines around the house, woke her up to see the full moon. So basically he was just really untidy and he wouldn't let her rest.
Well, after the break, Craig